Take your time. Settle down. Roll over to your favorite side and take a deep breath. And exhale. The sand at Warriewood Beach had a reddish tone, quite typical of Australian beaches, and followed large flat stones with deep cracks into the Tasman Sea, where it itself grew larger and deeper, perhaps even lighter, according to some sea creatures. It was early evening when Laniyah, a young traveler from overseas, came here to watch the sunset, greet the night, and find out what the sea was trying to tell her about life. A few people were still surfing, playing games in the sand, and one last skydiver hovered between land and sky, calling forth the winds to lift him into unreached heights. As the sun moved towards new beginnings and the moon somersaulted, Laniyah sat down in a cove at Warriewood Beach and watched the slowly ebbing hustle and bustle of people before they would head home for dinner. We're never really alone, Laniyah thought. She felt that every day. Whenever I allow the moment to take hold of me and carry me beyond the horizon, I meet people who help me shape my path. Without knowing it, without planning it. I've met old people who reminded me that love is worth giving up the past. 2 friends made me observe that everyone is special and it is always worth looking behind the facade. A young man's insouciance made me smile, making friends out of strangers. I learned that bad timing offers new opportunities and feel how distances shrink when you let each other share your downs and ups. Every experience made me richer, and I'm grateful for the realization that boundaries only ever exist in our minds, and when we overcome them, we can dive back into the magnificence of life. She reflected on all these currents that evening. Laniyah felt as if she had come home. Her gaze lit on the not yet quite sleepy spectacle that entered the horizontal stage before her, enveloping her in a warming breeze before the sky spread its dress colors from day-weary light blue to an almost white streak to yellowish layers to pinkish veils and back to blue. The reflection on the gradually clearing water surface conjured a deep sense of peace and security in the pit of Laniyah's stomach. A gentle breeze blew across the shoreline, carrying with it the smell of salt water and the sound of waves breaking on the shore. She knew that she would always carry this place inside her, and this knowledge gave her a comforting feeling of peace. She watched the last sedulous waves roll over the beach, which seemed to be made up of countless pebbles. A few people walked by, talking among themselves, and after a while, she had this corner of the beach all to herself. But what was that? A creature that looked inspiringly idiosyncratic and like it was lost in thought sat down beside her. "Bye-bye," sitting is not the right expression, it had settled down quietly next to her. "Hello," said the creature. "I'm Joshua." Laniyah smiled a little, confused, said, "Hey," and tried in vain to shake his hand. There was none. Instead, Joshua offered her his right wing. His feathers were black on his interested face and head, and he had shimmering blue patch of skin around his eyes with a white stripe around the nape and another from the cheek. The back and wings were olive green, the underside white, a completed composition of nature's beauty. "I'm so pleased to meet you. I've been watching you for ages," the bird said euphorically. Laniyah was surprised, but she didn't let it show. "For ages? I've just moved here 2 months ago," she replied with a slight of skepticism in her voice. "You know, for a honey eater like myself, 2 months is a tiny lifetime." "Aren't you getting old?" asked Laniyah, stumped. "Oh, I'm actually getting old, only much faster than you. My whole existence is calculated in 3.5 years of your time, and I've already crossed that line 9 times by now." Joshua babbled away. "9 times?" Laniyah interrupted. "So you must be around 31 years old in human time." "When you put it like this," the bird said, "it sounds quite exciting." It was indeed exciting, but the moment itself led to a gentle interruption of these conversations, and our two friends looked into the slowly setting sun. The wind picked up, and the air felt fresh in a cozy way. "Why?" asked Laniyah after a while. "Why does that excite you? Isn't it disturbing that you have lived 9 times longer than you should?" "Not at all. If I hadn't lived all those lives, I wouldn't be sitting here with you today. And that would have been a shame, wouldn't it?" Joshua replied friendly. "So you're saying that all your lives have meaning because you're here now?" "Exactly." "And may I ask why you have been watching me?" Laniyah came back to the beginning of the conversation. "Because I wanted to say hello, and I couldn't do that any day before this one," Joshua said, meaningful. "What do you mean by that?" "Well, I have met you many times before, haven't I?" Laniyah was startled. "I don't understand." "Of course you do. You have met me several times in your past as well, but this is the first time we talked. We've seen each other, but we never talked." Laniyah looked puzzled. "You know, every decision that brought you here today is because I was part of your journey before you knew it. So now we can sit together and watch the sunset. You went to extra trouble to come here, didn't you? You flew all the way around the world, much further than I can fly, and even further than I could ever imagine. I thank you for that." Joshua looked at her with a slight smile. Whilst still being confused in a way, Laniyah replied, "You're welcome. I guess I have to thank you for living 9 times to meet me." Joshua laughed. "Yes, that's right, but I'm sure there's much more to it than that. Don't you think so too?" "Yes, I do. I think that everything happens for a reason, even though it seems random sometimes. I agree. I think that we are all connected to each other, and we make decisions that affect the others, and they do the same thing. In a way, we are all responsible for each other, he said. What kind of decisions do you mean? Everything. Everything counts. Every small action affects someone else somewhere. That's how life works. That's how our universe works. But how can you know that? She asked defiantly. We don't know it, but we feel it. When we take a decision, we feel the ripple effect of our actions. And we know that it makes a difference. But how so? I don't fully get it. Let me give you an example. Imagine you go to bed and decide to wake up at 7 o'clock tomorrow morning. Now, that might seem insignificant, but you will probably wake up at that exact moment, maybe 10 minutes earlier or later. Why? Because you set up a rhythm and your body will follow it. It won't matter how tired you are, your body knows when it needs to wake up. And then, when you wake up at 7 o'clock, you feel good, you feel rested and refreshed. And then you get dressed, you have breakfast, go to work, spend the rest of the day doing whatever you do. And then you go to bed again at 11 o'clock and you wake up again at 8 o'clock the next morning. The next day you wake up again at 7 o'clock and so on. Every decision we make creates a rhythm, and every rhythm creates a new reality. Our decisions shape our reality. We shape our own world. We create our own destiny. Joshua explained his thought. Laniyah nodded. I get that. That's a simple example. Do you have another rhythm that one could create in their mind? She asked. I have one in my mind, but I'm not going to tell you about it yet. All right, wise bird, she said, ironically, but very much interested. Tell me something else then. He calmly looked at her. There's no need to hurry. I'm enjoying the silence right now. It feels very natural. I know what you mean. I love listening to the sound of the waves breaking on the shore. That's a touching sound. Yes, it is. They sat silently for a while and concentrated on what they were able to hear. It was like being able to realize how sounds work, like having access to a map. Every sound, however quiet it may have been, can be found on this map. Laniyah tried to derive which sounds came out of which direction. It was a spectacle words would never be able to frame. Do you know what the name Warriewood means? Joshua wanted to know after a while. Tell me about it. It's a word invented by a local resident who was passionate about trees. He named his house Warriewood, and then he planted lots of trees along the beach. That's how the name stuck, he said. Sounds like an interesting guy. He was. He loved nature. He used to collect rocks and shells. He had a huge collection of them. He was also a bit of a hippie. My grandfather knew him personally. Have they been friends too? Laniyah asked, interested. Oh, no. In fact, they couldn't stand each other. the local resident called him mean names, and that stuck with my species until today, Joshua replied. What names? Banana bird, Joshua grumbled. Laniyah repeated, Banana bird? Joshua nodded. He caught my ancestor looking for a new nest on a banana plantation. You have to know that we honey eaters prefer to sit in nests that have been made, as long as they are no longer inhabited. Unfortunately, we are not at all skilled in handicrafts. And that's when the villager scared him away, probably thinking that my ancestor wanted to get his wings on his tasty bananas. That's how misunderstandings arise, because we are not always asked what moves us, but others take the liberty of adopting an attitude, which then results in a fight, the extent of which no one could have imagined. I see. That's pretty harsh. Indeed. It was a long time ago, but I have never forgotten what happened. I don't like that name. I'll call you Joshua, if that's all right with you. Thanks, and I'll call you Laniyah. How do you... Laniyah was wondering. Nice to meet you. Joshua just smiled his tiny bird smile. Nice to meet you too, Laniyah sighed, befriending, without asking any further. After a few moments of silence, Laniyah continued. What did you want to tell me? I was talking about the rhythms we set in our lives, how we influence each other. I think that's why we have the feeling that we're all connected, because we are. Joshua continued this earlier thought. Is that what you believe in? That we're all connected? Yes, that's what I believe in. What about free will? What about fate? I don't think that either of them exist. How can you be so sure? Because I've done enough research. What about you? What do you think about these things? I agree with you. We must be all connected, that we are influenced by each other. The ocean and the atmosphere create clouds. They rain down on the landscape. Trees can grow from that, so they can fill the air with freshness, which humans can breathe in. And then they sit next to the ocean to tell him what's new and to ask him questions he and the atmosphere have to think about, so new clouds arise. And I believe that we can change the world. Laniyah looked around triumphantly. She felt like she was talking to a friend to whom she could explain any thought that came into her mind. Really? Have you changed the world? Joshua got excited and fluttered the feathers on his neck. Yes, I have, many times. She winked at the ocean, because young waves came closer to listen to her answer as well. Can you please give me an example? Sure, I remember one time. Laniyah started telling her story and created the atmosphere with words so that every listener was with her in the memory she decided to tell. And because we have been with Laniyah and Joshua for quite a moment now, I'm sure she would like us to dive deep into her reminiscence as well. So imagine the following scene. In the early hours of the morning, the moon rose above the horizon. Its pale light reflected off the surface of the lake. The water shimmered with tiny ripples as if the stars were gently moving through the sky. The wind was calm and the night was quiet. Laniyah stood in front of the cottage. Her eyes followed the path down to the lake. she saw a large white duck swimming across the lake. She smiled. "The ducks are coming back," she said out loud. She turned around and walked into the house. The kitchen smelled of coffee and freshly baked bread. Laniyah poured herself a cup of coffee and took a slice of bread. Then she went into the living room and sat down on the couch. She started to read the newspaper. The newspaper reported that a group of ducks had migrated northwards and were flying towards New Zealand. They were returning after spending the winter in Australia. The migrating ducks flew over the country, landing on lakes and rivers. This year, they had returned early due to the warmer weather. Laniyah ate her bread slowly. She enjoyed the smell of the coffee, the warmth of the sun on her skin, and the peacefulness of her surroundings. She was happy. She felt safe and secure. Then she heard a noise outside. It sounded like tiny footsteps. Someone was walking towards the house. Laniyah put down her cup and went outside. When she opened the front door, she recognized Oscar, the neighbor's cat. Around his neck hung a bright-sounding bell, which he could not pull over his head on his own accord. Oscar rubbed against Laniyah's legs and purred loudly. She scratched him behind his ears. "Where have you been?" she asked. "Out hunting for food. At least I was trying to do that," Oscar replied. "Oh, what happened? Are you all right?" "I haven't eaten anything since yesterday afternoon. That was the time Conrad, the tiny one of the household, thought it would be delightful for me to walk around like an alarm clock for mice. They hear me from miles away. Honestly, I need you to take off this silly thing, please." Laniyah pulled the bell from Oscar's neck. "Thank you, dear. The next bird is on me." And that's how I saved the world. At least once in a time. Laniyah ended her story. The young waves applauded and went giggling back into the sea. Joshua looked deeply concerned at Laniyah. Wide-eyed gazed, he asked her, "How are you the hero in that story? I truly want to meet Conrad. He seems to think ahead." Laniyah laughed. "Oscar is far away from here, Joshua. Don't worry, he won't be able to catch you here." "What a relief," Joshua said while straightening his feathers. "Do you miss your hometown sometimes, Laniyah?" "Yes, of course." "Why do you live here then?" "When I left my city, my family, my habits, my relationship, my friends, my home country, I knew that I would use the coming months to find out about myself, to get to know me without my surroundings, to allow myself to meet a me that was yet to emerge. I wanted to see the world, to be inspired, to be blown away and return as a new person, to come home a self-confident, cosmopolitan, broad-minded, interesting person who radiates a special kind of calm. I thought this person was very close, but apparently I also rushed this consideration, like so many times before. It almost disappoints me a little that I haven't found yet the reason to stay here. She looked over to the listening bird and said, "Yes, I am talking about my soulmate. On the other hand, this circumstance also makes me extremely happy because I finally have time for the things I have planned. Most of the time I'm filled with being with myself. I'm slowly becoming more creative, more innovative, more knitted, and more aware of my desires. That's good. That's what change is for. But you miss your home. Of course. I'm only human. Do you ever miss your family?" "Yes, sometimes I miss even them. But family can be found all over the world." "What about you? Do you miss the birds you met in your 9 lives before this one?" Laniyah asked. "I don't miss them, but I'm still grateful for having met them." "Why?" "They taught me a lot of things." She wanted to know more. "Like what?" "That humans aren't perfect, that they have many flaws, but even if they always have the abilities to make things right and transform mistakes into learnings. I admire that. Birds are kind of like that too, you know," Joshua responded. Laniyah laughed. "It might be very true. What else have they been teaching you?" "Well, that there are many different ways to look at things. We're all different. We all see the world in a different way. Some people see the world in terms of logic, others in terms of intuition. Others prefer to see it in terms of emotions or love. Each of us sees the world in their own unique way. There are no absolute truths, no ultimate answers. Everything is relative. That's what I learned from birds, and that's what I try to live by now." "Thanks for telling me all that," Laniyah said quietly. "Can I ask you another question?" Joshua nodded. "Do you believe in fate?" He took a moment to think about it. "No, not really." "Why not?" "Because everything is possible. If something happens, it is because we have created it. Fate is just a word that some people use to describe the results of our actions. Of course, there are situations you have to face to become what was already inside of you, but that is not fate to me." "Let me try my earlier approach then. What about free will?" she asked. "Free will is a choice between 2 or more possibilities. It is an illusion that we are forced to act according to the decisions we made before birth. It is an illusion that we cannot change. In reality, we have the possibility to choose freely every moment, even though we may not realize it at first. The important thing is that we should never stop questioning ourselves. Always question your choices and the choices of those around you. Never accept the status quo. Be critical. Always," Joshua replied. "You sound like you are trying to convince yourself of something." "Maybe I am," he answered calmly, while looking at the first light that appeared light years away from them, just to show its success of traveling to our friends in that very moment. After a while, Joshua asked, "Are you happy, Laniyah?" "Yes, I am right now. I'm enjoying the moment." She propped herself up on her arms to look more comfortably into the slowly becoming a night sky. She too had already spotted the first star. "What does that mean to you?" Joshua asked, elated. "I enjoy the beauty of nature, the company of animals, the comfort of my home, the safety of my neighborhood, the happiness of my friends, the kindness of strangers, the wisdom of my elders, the laughter of children, the knowledge of history, the pleasure of learning, the satisfaction of working hard, the joy of creating, the pleasure of sharing, the contentment of my heart, the freedom of my spirit, the passion of my dreams, the excitement of my future, the wonder of the universe, the magic of life, the mystery of death, the power of creation, the strength of imagination, the joy of giving, the ecstasy of love, the delight of friendship, the beauty of creation, the thrill of adventure, the awe of creation, the wonder of existence, the hope of eternity, the fear of oblivion, the joy of life, the wonder of the unknown, the magic of nature, the miracle of nature." I could go on, you know. Laniyah cleared her throat. "You're not making sense. Why do you enjoy these things?" She thought about that. "Because I am alive." "Is that enough? For now?" Silently, they turned their gaze back to the expanse of the sea. In the meantime, the sun bathed the landscape in a bright orange-red and, after a few minutes, said goodbye to this day and its admirers. The sun sank below the horizon, leaving a dark red line. Laniyah sighed. "I wish I could fly," she whispered. "Why can't you fly?" "I don't know. Maybe it's because I have arms instead of wings." "That's indeed true. And your beautiful feathers are not connected like mine. They just grow out of your head to your shoulders." "I don't understand why I can fly." Laniyah started to paint tiny figures into the sand in front of her. "Have you tried?" Joshua asked while he came a bit closer to look at Laniyah's art. "Yes, several times, but can't seem to manage it." "Why not?" "I don't know, it's weird. I don't feel any different when I flap my arms." "Doesn't flying make you feel something magical?" "But you can flap your arms," Joshua reassured what he just heard. "Yes, I can," she nodded. "And you can run." "Yes, I can run." He clapped his wings enthusiastically. "So you can fly?" "As I said," Laniyah reached for his understanding, "I don't know how to do that." "Why don't you try?" "I'm afraid I'll fall," she replied. A well-known bedtime story would at this point say, "But darling, what if you fly?" So I say, try it anyway. Joshua's head began to wobble for excitement, and it worked. She said, Okay, let's do it." closed her eyes. She took a deep breath and held it. She exhaled slowly. She pushed herself up from the ground and flapped her arms, first slowly, and by time she got faster, nothing happened. She kept sitting down on the ground, red sand between her toes. It might be more of a mindset thing, don't you think? Joshua gave to consider. Yeah, I guess. I think it's better to try to imagine flying. It will help you relax, and then you won't be afraid anymore. Okay, I'll try. What do I have to think about to start flying, Joshua? The bird explained, and if you are still awake, dear listener, you might like to try flying as well with his directions. First, you need to relax. Then, you need to focus on your body. Breathe. Breathe. Visualize your breath. What does it look like? What path does it take on its journey through your body? You become lighter and lighter, and the air that your breath brings in fills you. Breathe in and slowly out again. Very good. Stay relaxed and trust in your strength. Believe in yourself. You can make this flight. Imagine your physical body now leaving the bottom of this beach. How does it feel? Stay with this tingling sensation on your skin that you feel now. It is the miracle that will carry you. Then you need to concentrate on your feet. You need to let your legs and your arms carry you upwards. When you reach the highest point, you need to spread your wings wide open. And then you need to let yourself fall. Fall deep into yourself, your visions, your ideas, your world of pure imagination. It must be the glorious place you could ever dream about. Sink in, feel yourself trusting the process. And see, now you're flying. It's that simple. Laniyah opened her eyes and looked around. She had been meditating for a while. She saw Joshua flying above her. The noise of his wing beat made her come back to the ground. She hissed at him. "Joshua, stop." "What's wrong?" he whispered back. "You're going to wake everyone up." "Oh, sorry." The bird landed beside her and tried to be extra quiet. "Did you have a nice flight?" he asked. "Yes, I did. Thank you." Laniyah felt an so far unknown peace inside of her. "Shall we continue our conversation?" Joshua asked. "Sure." "We were talking about free will and destiny. Yes, she remembered. Would you agree that both concepts are illusions? Illusions? What do you mean? Both free will and destiny are illusions, Joshua said. It depends. How do you define an illusion? An illusion is an idea or belief that is false or mistaken. So what is truth? There's no such thing as truth. There's only what is. There's no such thing as fact. There's only what is. All facts are interpretations of the observer. There's no such thing as universal truth. There's only what is. I don't understand, Laniyah replied honestly. It's okay. Take your time. It's difficult to grasp at first, but if you give it some thoughts, you will eventually understand. How can you say that? I mean, how do you know that? Just listen. Let me explain. Everything is happening in the present. The past is gone forever. The future is unknowable. Time is an illusion. Only what is exists. What is? Only what is. That's all. What about nothing? She asked. Nothing? Think about it. You are listening to this story, but you are also hearing the sounds of the ocean, the wind in the trees, chirping of birds, the rustling of leaves, the buzzing of insects, the humming of bees, the chatter of squirrels, the roar of cars, and so on. Every single one of these things is happening at the same time, the same place, yet each of them is separate and distinct from each other. This is nothing, or rather it is everything, Joshua told her. Then what is everything? Everything is everything. There is nothing that isn't part of everything. Everything is everything. That doesn't make sense. That's right. And isn't it beautiful? No. Why not? Because it makes no sense. It does. How? Think about it. Look at your hand. It's yours. It belongs to you. It has a shape and color that is unique to you. It is part of you. It is you. It is everything you are. It is everything you want to be. It is everything you can be. It is everything you will be. It is everything you are not. It is everything you don't want to be. So it's everything and nothing at the same time? Laniyah came closer to the clue. Exactly, everything and nothing at the same time. Joshua smiled, more to himself than to her. And in everything exists a nothing, and in every nothing exists an everything, right? Like yin and yang? Very good, yes. That's exactly what I was trying to explain. Laniyah gave that a thought. So, where do I fit in? You are everything and nothing at the same time. I still don't understand. Do you remember when I told you that there is no such thing as a truth? There's no such thing as a fact? Yes? Well, this is where it becomes important. Why? Because I can prove it. How? I can show you that there is no such thing as truth and there's no such thing as a fact. But how can you do that? She asked. By showing you that the world is nothing but an illusion, he said, shrugging his shoulders. How so? Because everything is an illusion. There's no such thing as a reality. Remember when I told you that I crossed the H mark of my kind 9 times? Joshua asked, enigmatic. Laniyah nodded. Well, it's simple math. Or let's say, a simple thought. Every time my body shows a signal of aging, I'm telling it that it just needs a good, relaxing night of sleep somewhere outside the nest. Maybe in the desert of my mind, or under, in itself, aging leaf. And when I wake up in the next morning, I feel refreshed, energetic, and like all of my wishes and dreams are much closer than the end of my physical being. Have you also had moments in which you wanted to set a new beginning, a new era? Joshua asked. Yes, I have. Have you also felt that you were getting older and tired and wished to change something? Yes, I also have. So why haven't you done anything about it? Because I don't know how to, Laniyah said, contemplative. That's because you believe the world is real. You believe that the world is solid. You believe that the world is permanent. You believe that the world is fixed, but in fact, it is not. So if you would like to try that method of mine, tonight would be the perfect opportunity to do so. Joshua encouraged her. Both became quiet for a while. Listened their very own sentiments and lay down in the day-warm sand to look at the bright and amicable shining stars above them. Laniyah jerked her head upright and inhaled as deeply as she had never done. The starry night sank into her, and only when she exhaled calmly did the waves flow back into the ocean, the warm breezes back to the shore. I think I might be good for now. This evening showed me that I'm on the right path. That I'm able to meet someone like you shows me that. I'm very grateful to feel everything and nothing at the same time, without one truth, but innumerable floating views of their own truths. The only thing I wish for is for you to be here when I wake up. She looked over to Joshua. He listened with closed eyes. Oh, that's the kindest wish someone ever wished for me. Thank you. Joshua smiled. You can be sure that we're going to meet again in the morning. Now, let's get some rest. Let's leave the day behind. I'll keep us company until we fall asleep. Now Laniyah smiled back with one last amazed look at the stars. Then she rolled over to her left side, bent her legs, and felt the wind and the coast spread a gentle blanket over her. And while slowly falling asleep, she felt like being a blue-faced honey-eater flying away across the ocean to great adventures.